Hey, John, thank you for coming for Insider Magazine. Please tell us who you are and your background.
Well, I just want to start by first saying that I want to give condolences to Christian Alite, who passed away last month at Halloween. And I'd like to say that he died as a hero, and I want people to remember him and remember what kind of man he was.
Who was he and what happened?
He was with his fiance and his sister on Halloween, and there was a car that was out of control, and he lost his life, saving their life.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, John. So obviously you value life, you value your friends. Tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Well, I'm also Albanian, and I was an ex-enforcer for the Gambino family, particularly the Gottis.
And what time period was that?
The early 80s on to when I was arrested and found in Brazil prison.
So you've been all over the world. What countries have you visited and what groups have you visited, criminal groups?
Well, I was in Brazil. That's where I was caught and captured. I was around the Command of Vermelho, which is the Red Command. I was in Venezuela on an army base, hidden away by the cartel that I was friendly with in Colombia. I moved around Albania with some of the bosses there, and I traveled probably to anywhere from 15 to 20-something countries.
So it's fair to say, as an ex-mafia guy, that kind of goes in hand, mafia as well as terrorism. What's your take on the current terrorism actions taken by ISIS?
Well, I believe, Abu Bakr, he's one of the supposed leaders of ISIS. And he's, trying to infiltrate countries like Syria, Iraq, and he wants an Islamic state. I don't think he's going to be successful in long term. In a short term, he can be dangerous, obviously, with just what happened in Paris, what happened in Russia. But I think long term he won't, because there is no loyalty, even with the terrorism. Even though it's fanaticism, he still isn't loyal to his own people. His war counselor was killed recently, and in return for the loyalty of his war counselor, he married, that war counselor passed away, who was killed, his wife. So there goes the loyalty back to what we know of the mob. With loyalty factors, and even with fanatics like that, it just shows you that there is no loyalty.
So you have a little bit of experience in actually counterterrorism. What is Protocol? Tell us a little bit about that.
Protocol is a company I'm advising for. Protocol was founded, the CEO was Dave Gentile, who was ex-FBI agent. The president of the company is this guy Roddick. He's ex-military, Israeli military forces. And what they do is experts on anti-terrorism, investigation work, and training of officers.
So an article came out by Giovanni Gambino, son of infamous mobster Francesco Ciccio Gambino, and he talked about, forget Anonymous, the mafia is ready to take on ISIS. So tell us a little bit about that.
I got to laugh a little bit at that. It's exaggerated. Do I think there's underlinks that are attached to the Sicilian mob? Yes, without a doubt, because of the drug business, the drug trade. There's poppy that's huge growth in Afghanistan. And I think down the line, when it's being grown and sold, it's somewhere down the line getting back to Sicilian mobsters and guys moving that throughout Europe, which in turn, that money is used to purchase guns on the international underbelly of places like Russia or anywhere in Europe.
Now, the Pizza Connection was a huge case where Sicilian mobsters were convicted of importing $1.6 billion worth of heroin. In your book, you talked a little bit about being a drug dealer yourself. Tell us a little bit about how, at the time, you were selling drugs, and how did that relate to eventually going into terrorist pockets? Now that you're a little bit older and wiser, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is a funnel effect. And once you purchase drugs, that money and that drug money is going somewhere. So that drug money for terrorists that are growing poppy or selling to terrorists and other people are growing poppy, eventually they're using that money from the sales, and they're buying arms, and they're buying rockets, and they're buying things like the famous movie with Nicolas Cage, who was a underbelly of arms dealer that sold you anything from machine guns to rocket launchers, hand propelled. So that money eventually is going to get in those hands. As a drug dealer in the 80s, terrorism wasn't what it is today. But as you sit back and you get older, you get wiser, you understand the world. I moved around the world. I understand where that money's going. That money's going in the pockets of terrorists. I says, and so I think the war on drugs is necessary to be stepped up in a way where I have a lot of respect, and I talk about him a lot, is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, because this is a guy that was a war hero. This is a guy that was shot. This was the guy that understands terrorism because of Hamas and the rockets that are being pointed at Israel on a regular basis. So he understands that you can't be politically correct here. You have to be able to understand we're at war. There's a Patriot Act, and the United States is at war. So is France, and so is the rest of the world, matter of fact. So when a bomb has got to be dropped, I believe a guy like Benjamin Netanyahu understands you have to make hard decisions, and some innocent people in those countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, and wherever there's terrorists are going to lose their life. I says, but he's protecting his people in our homeland.
So one last question on this part. Again, Giovanni talked about how the Mafia would protect their own, Southern Italy, the streets of New York, etc. You know these guys better than anybody, right? Are they businessmen or are they patriotic?
They're lining their pockets. That's what's their main goal is to line their pockets and to make money. Is there a connection where they can? No, he's overshooting the reach of the Italian Mafia. They're lucky themselves that they can survive the streets with the everyday killing that goes back and forth between the families and the mob and whatever the street guys they're involved with. But to say that they can control, where were they during 9/11 twice? And where were they during Boston's marathon? We got to understand this is a serious thing, a serious war that we have. And a guy like Obama, I believe, is a nice guy, but he talks too much. And when someone talks and doesn't act, you need guys like Putin. Whether you like him politically or not, they're strong, and so is Benjamin Netanyahu. So these guys are guys that going to walk with a stick, and they're gonna swing it, and that's what you need here. You need a strong leader to be able to make that decision and drop those bombs and take these guys out aggressively and hunt them down and put op teams and special force teams on the leaderships of these guys like Abu.